solving a combined variation problem. So a daycare supervisor has determined that the number of children enrolled in a daycare varies directly with the amount she spends on advertising. So directly with the amount she spends on advertising per week, and inversely with her weekly charge per each child. This year she spent $900 on advertising and charged $150 per child per week and had 51 children enrolled. Next year, if she spends $1,000 on advertising and charge $170 per week, how many children are expected to enroll in the daycare? Now, let's go ahead and go through our steps to figure out the result for this combined variation problem. So this will give us our step number 1, which says to determine and write our general relationship of variables using our constant k. So step 1, we're going to go ahead and do this. One thing we can quickly note is we know that it varies directly with the amount she spends on advertising, and additionally inversely with the weekly charges per child. So we know that children enrollment is equal to, and again we're going to have our k on the top. Let's deal with our directly proportional part first. So let's go back up here. Varies directly with the amount she spends on advertising. So k and then amount she spends on advertising is going to be on the top. And I'm just going to go ahead and abbreviate it, advertising. What else does it tell us? It tells us inversely with her weekly charge for each child. So that's going to be what's going to be on the bottom here. So weekly charge per child. And this problem did not tell us the square or cubed, so we should be good to go with this original setup here. Now let's go ahead and move on to step number 2, which says to substitute our given values to find our k. So we want to go ahead and try to find this k given our first set of information. So step number 2, let's go ahead and try to figure out what our k is here. So our first pieces of information, what did it tell us? I'm going to go ahead and change to a different color here. So first pieces of information, 900 on advertising, 150 per child, and then finally 51 children. So given that information, we can go ahead and plug in and figure out what k is going to be. So child enrollment was 51. Our k, again, we don't know what that is, but we need to go ahead and try to solve for it. Spent on advertising, $900. And then finally weekly charge per child is that 150. So 150 is going to be on the bottom here. Now in order to isolate the k, we want to go ahead and multiply the 150 out from the bottom. So 150. And that should give us our k times 900 is now going to be equal to 7650. Or in other words, our k is going to be equal to 8.5. So now that we've found k, we can go ahead and move on to step number 3. So step 3, we want to take this k and plug it back into our original. So step 3, we want to go ahead and plug it back into our original. So we know that our child enrollment is going to be equal to our top, we now have 8.5 multiplied by spent on advertising, all right, and that's going to now be divided by that weekly charge per child. So weekly and then charge per child. All right, so now that we've completed step 3, we can go ahead and combine step 4 and step 5, substitute our second set of values, and then find our unknown. So let's go ahead and find our second set of values here. So our second set of values is going to go ahead and be, she spends $1,000 on advertising and charges $170 per week, and we want to figure out how many are expected to enroll here. So plugging those values in, we should have child enrollment. That is the ultimate question we want to answer. So child enrollment, and that's going to be equal to 8.5 multiplied by our amount spent on advertising was 1,000, so 1,000 here, and that's going to be divided by our weekly charge per child, which is 170. Now, figuring out what our unknown is, we can go ahead and multiply the 170, multiply the 170, and this should give us, in this case, child enrollment times 170 is now equal to 8.5 times 1,000, and if we divide by the 170, we should get child enrollment equal to 50. So if we spent 1,000 on advertising and then our weekly charge per child was 170, given that our constant was 8.5, we should have approximately 50 children enrolled in the daycare. So this will be our final answer, and we are good to go here.